afternoon, and welcome to Our World, Our Power. Happy Saturday. You're here with Lady Pauline and my co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenidge, the Honorable Mayor of Sutton Boulevard. How are you, Glenn?
I'm doing well, and you're looking mighty spiffy there in your black and white dress
Oh,
there.
yes, I went shopping through Wish. Wish has been one of my greatest sponsors. They have been giving me clothes to wear and
Oh,
I
are those
know,
boots?
those my boots too. I know you can't see them.
Oh, my
but
goodness.
I got some very sexy boots
Woo!
on here. Yeah,
Okay.
they're hot to trot.
All right.
And that makes me ready to rock. So
Well, today we have a very special guest.
yes, we do. His name is Paul Barclay. We worked together for the past 20-something years with mental health issues. Today's show is going to be Let's Talk About It. Because a lot of times people have mental health issues and they don't want to talk about it, but it doesn't mean that it's not there. So Paul Barclay is one of my guests, and a young lady by the name of Michelle
Hope will be
Hope.
joining us virtually at some point in the program.
And she's a
Sexologist.
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 Whoa, yeah,
Okay, we're looking forward to having that conversation.
Yes. But in the meantime, we're going to start off with Mr. Paul Barclay, who has been working in the mental health issues for many, many years. Tell us all your credentials, Paul. I know I can't even remember them.
Okay, all right. Well, first I'd like to say thank you all for having me. I believe this is my second time on the show.
Yes,
Yes.
it is.
Appreciate it. I am a credentialed alcohol and substance abuse counselor. I also have an international certification as an alcohol and drug counselor. I'm a mental health first aider. I'm a certified case manager. I am wow, I'm starting to forget them. Certified recovery peer advocate. I am also certified recovery coach, trainer of trainers, which means I train people to train recovery coaches. And of course, I have a certification as a recovery coach as well.
Oh, that's awesome,
Wow.
Paul.
Wow.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you.
why, audience, I would like to take the time to say, once a month we're going to be doing a show on mental health issues. We're going to try to cover all these mental health issues through the DSM-4 with Paul and myself and Glenn. And it's going to be called Let's Talk About It. So if you have any issues that you wanted to hear about, you can always call in and, get your issues resolved that way. So let's begin, Paul. Tell me a little bit about the last year and a half. How has things been going with all the problems because of the pandemic? How has it affected your career?
Well, not only my career, but it has affected people in general.
Yes.
The COVID-19, the coronavirus itself is something that that I know of have been able to experience in their lifetime. The last time I remember there was some sort of virus to this magnitude was the Spanish
The Spanish flu.
Exactly, and that was quite some time ago. So one thing that I've noticed is that a lot of people after this pandemic, well, I don't even want to say it's over, after we were able to open up the city and things were able to kind of sort of resume back to the new normal, what I like to call it, a lot of my personal clients who attend the programs that I work at or that I've encountered seem to be diagnosed with a lot of major depression disorders, anxiety disorders, panic attacks, things of that nature, due to the coronavirus and the way that it affected them. Having to be locked down for several months, even after that was over, having to wear masks constantly to even go outside. Mental health providers, substance abuse counselors, agencies started to do things with telehealth. Mm-hmm. Now you have to get a phone that you have to learn how to operate Zoom, FaceTime, and things of that nature. And a lot of clients have even expressed to me that they really don't like that. They prefer the one-on-one, the in-office, intimate relationship when it comes to speaking about their mental health issues, substance abuse issues, or just in general. They don't really want to do the telehealth or the FaceTime. And I've noticed too that some practitioners have been having a little bit of issues because if you can't get somebody on the phone or they can't operate Zoom, then how do you really write like prescriptions for them? How are you able to see them to determine if they're decompensating, if they need a crisis intervention, things of that nature? So it's been a little difficult.
Well, Paul, I also want to say that I of myself have had battling with depression for the past year because of the pandemic, the isolation, the
Yes.
fact of not being able to do the things I've always, do. And just the fact that, you have to put on this mask. And when you see other people, it's just like, it's like a block, or feeling that, oh, gee, my God, I may catch something, or I might die because I went out today. That type of terrified feeling.
Yes.
And I know a lot of people have been going through it. And the fact that if you were in therapy and you were seeing your counselor or your therapist individually, up and personal, now you're doing it through the phone.
Yes.
And that is another way of isolation. You can't see the person. So even as a counselor or a therapist, you can't look into your client's face and see what's wrong.
You're right. And that does make it difficult for you to really be able to determine exactly what is going on with the person who's receiving the therapy services. Because once you're able to see them, it kind of gives you a better outlook, a better perspective, and it can also promote you to ask certain questions.
True.
Hearing them talking to them over the phone, that's okay and it's great. And sometimes you had to do that even before the pandemic came about. But it's always, to me, better when you can actually sit down and have that therapeutic relationship where you can visually see them. That would help them to also understand and see you, because body language means a lot when you're dealing with therapy, when you're dealing with substance abuse disorders, things of that nature. Yeah, being able to see a person, talk to them directly, face to face, read body language, gestures, movements, all of that means a lot.
Paul, we're focusing on the pandemic, but mental health has been a huge issue in the Black and brown community even before the pandemic. What would you say are some of the major areas that we as a community should be looking at, or maybe some of the signs even that people are in trouble?
Right. Well, one thing we need to also understand is when you say the word mental illness, that is not something new in America.
No.
1 in 5 Americans suffer from a mental health disorder.
1 in 5?
1 in 5. So
wow.
there's 3 of us here now on the panel. If we had 2 more people in here, one of us at some point in time would suffer from some sort of mental health condition. And Ms. Swift just mentioned.
Yeah. 1 in 3.
Exactly. And it got worse after the pandemic.
Right. So that's something that we need to definitely keep in mind. So it's not something that is new. Again, a lot of the not new, but a lot of disorders that have come about that I've encountered or people have, I've read in psychosocials and doing things of that nature, is the major depression. Now, what happens with major depression is a lot of times people aren't very aware of the signs and the symptoms of a person that may be exhibiting major depression or depression in general.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
so that's usually the first thing. Now, if you have some life areas that are being interrupted due to you not wanting to get up, not wanting to go to work, isolating yourself from others, having difficulty with sleeping, having difficulty with concentration. And mind you, these is just a couple of the symptoms. They have a book called the DSM-5, which is what professionals use in order to diagnose a person properly.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, it's the Diagnostic Statistical Manual.
Okay.
So they're up to edition number 5 right now. That book is used by professionals. It's from the American Psychiatric Association, which is doctors who every so often sit around. They have a discussion to determine what new disorders that they have may encountered, ways to determine and make sure that when you diagnose a person, you're diagnosing them correctly.
Okay.
You can't just look at a person and say, okay, this person is this or this person is that. So usually it's 3 out of the 5, or some cases 5 out of the 7 symptoms a person has to exhibit. And different symptoms depends on how long you exhibit them. Because you may have some that are mild, some that are severe. And what happens is that once you are diagnosed with this particular disorder, then there's different methods that you can use. One thing about mental illness, what I've come to realize is that there is no cure for it. There's medication that can help you manage it and have you continue to live a healthy lifestyle. There's also talk therapy. What I've learned and what I've seen with a lot of my clients is that between the medication and the talk therapy, a person can live their life as if me and you.
Yeah, look, I'm here. You know, I will admit that I am one of the people. You know, I suffer from bipolar disorder. I've had it for many, many, many years. I think it was discovered and diagnosed about 20-something years ago. The fact that I am bipolar, and I got on medication. So I've been on it for like 20-something years. And there's still times that I feel, you know, I get very depressed, extra depressed, you know, but I know how to snap back. I go to therapy. I'm in therapy every week. I speak to a psychiatrist every week. You know, and I talk about it. You know,
Right.
Even right now to all my friends, I talk about issues. I talk about how I feel. Because if you don't talk about it, then, you know, you can't deal with it.
Very true.
You know, and I believe that people need to talk. That's why we're going to have this show once a month for people to talk about, you know, mental illness. That it's not a disgrace to have it. Years ago, it was a disgrace.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, it was, oh my God, oh, she's crazy or he's crazy. There's nothing. If you look at me, do I look crazy? No.
Right,
But I mean, sometimes, you know, I do act up. But
Right. Well, the
but it's in a fun way. You understand what I'm saying?
Understood.
Right.
The thing about medication is a lot of people, once they start taking medication and they're doing the talk therapy and they start to feel better, they start to get out more, they start to socialize, they start to live their life, so to speak, then they seem to feel as though, okay, I'm cured, I don't need the medication any longer, I don't need a therapist any longer, I'm fine. What happens is, of course, the signs and the symptoms start to exasperate and start to exhibit themselves all over again. And now they'll start to feel like, well, what's going on with me? What's happening with me? I don't understand. Talk therapy alone helps a great deal. With the added medication, helps stabilize you. But what people sometimes don't get is that you should not stop either one drastically.
Okay. The two things I want to ask you about. One is the talk therapy. Say a little bit more about what that entails.
Right. Well, the first thing is that when you are looking for a therapist, which is the person who would provide the professional counseling, the talk therapy with you, you're looking for a person that you can or feel some sort of connection to,
Okay.
therapeutically.
Mm-hmm.
Then you feel a little bit more comfortable with sharing what I like to call your deep down inner feelings on what's going on with you.
Okay.
Now, in
Okay.
some cases, your talk therapy might go a little bit to the right or to the left, meaning you start to talk about things, okay, well, I feel so good where I'm at with my mental health. Let me tell you about what's going on with my family. Let me tell you what's going on with my partner. Let me tell you what's going on with my children, things of that nature, because those things can also be stressors.
Right. They interact with you as well.
Without a doubt.
Sure.
And sometimes those are the reasons or the causes that add on to, let's say your mother had bipolar disorder, but you had no knowledge of it. Sometimes it can be passed down heretically.
Yes, that's true.
Right, and in other cases, it even can skip a generation, so your children would be fine. However,
Their children, yeah.
may exhibit some signs of bipolar or panic attacks or some sort of the same disorder.
Yes.
So talk therapy is something that can help in a great deal in different manners. Now, once you feel comfortable enough with your therapist to share these things, because, you know, a therapist is a professional.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about them going around the corner telling this one or telling that one, or your business being out in the street. That will never happen with the therapist. The therapist is a person who confidentiality is key. That's the first thing, because once you feel comfortable enough to give them your inner thoughts, what's really going on with you and how you're feeling about certain situations, now you start to open, as they say, Pandora's box and start to deal with the actual issues at hand. That is a great move there once you get to that point in therapy. Some people think, okay, well, I done talked about everything, my life is grand and everything is fine, that's it, I'm done. At that point, it's not actually done. It's almost like a medication. You have to wean yourself off of the therapy. You don't just call your therapist one day and say, okay, I feel so much better, I'm good, and everything is great, and I'm done. I won't be coming back anymore.
But people do that.
On a regular basis.
Yeah.
So let's flip to the other side, because I've heard of people on medication and the medication makes them feel funny or uncomfortable, and I've heard say that I don't take it because I don't feel right with that medication. What does a person do in that case, and what are the kind of prescribed follow up to those kinds of issues? Because I've heard that.
Definitely, I've heard that several times too. So just like how we all don't look the same, just like how all our DNA is not the same,
right.
Medication is not going to affect each and every person the same way.
Right.
That's the first thing we need to understand. I may take a medication and I may not have any side effects from it. You may take the same exact medication, the same milligrams, prescribed by the same psychiatrist, but it changes your mood in a way where you feel lethargic. I'm just extra tired. My mouth is dry. I just don't like the way this medication makes me feel. It makes me difficult to wake up in the morning to go about my day.
Mm-hmm.
In that situation, what you would want to do is talk to your psychiatrist. Talk to the psychiatrist and let them know this is how this medication is making me feel. This is the side effect that I'm feeling from taking this specific medications. The reason why you do that is because there's different type of psychotropic medications that can help you with the same situation or issue that you may be having. This particular one may not be for you.
Right.
It just may not work for you. Let me correct that. It may work, but the side effects are so noticeable to you that you aren't able to go about your daily living in a way that you feel good about yourself.
Okay.
So you talk to the psychiatrist. You let your therapist know. Some people would just stop the medications altogether without saying anything. And then, of course, all those other signs and symptoms start to come back. They start to respond to internal stimuli, meaning when you see people, sometimes they're having a full conversation with themselves.
Right.
And the reason why you know they're talking to themselves because there's nobody else around them. Mm-hmm. So, and in cases like that, sometimes people hear one voice, sometimes they hear two voices, sometimes they hear children, sometimes they hear people in their past who have passed away. So in different situations will present differently once you stop taking the medication. So if you have side effects from any medication that you are taking, it is a great idea to speak to the psychiatrist who prescribed it and let them know immediately. Normally, when you take a psychotropic medication, it takes anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks before you start to feel the difference. So within that time frame, that's also a tester frame for you to determine how you feel. If you don't feel good because you're feeling a whole bunch of other things that you did not feel before, talk to the psychiatrist. They're human beings. They understand. Not everything is for everybody.
Right.
They might even just lower the dosage because sometimes the dosage may be too high for you.
Okay.
In some cases, they may change the medication to a different one.
Okay.
But the only way the psychiatrist is going to know, or even your therapist is going to know that you're having difficulties with this particular medication is by informing them.
Now, as a family member, how do you support someone in your family that is, maybe having the situation where they're uncomfortable or In fact, I had a situation in college where one of my roommates stopped taking this medication, and we weren't sure what was going on, and he kind of was having half thoughts in his conversations, and we called his family and found out, but we waited over a week because we didn't know. It was the first 2 weeks of school, and we didn't really know his personality per se, and so and I'm sure a family member probably would have picked up on it quicker. But we were, kind of a myth, and then we finally said we think something is wrong because he hadn't taken a bath in a couple of days, and this guy, the first week, he changed his clothes like, 2 or 3 times a day. Sharp dresser, great conversation, and then all of a sudden kind of fell off, and we weren't sure. So how do people support, family members or friends or acquaintances that they think something is going on and are not sure?
Right. Well, family. The support system of family plays a very big part when you're in therapy or even just having a mental health condition in general. Because of all of those things that you just mentioned, not showering, not changing clothes, acting erratically, all of these are signs that, yes, something is going on. The only thing that you and your roommates were not privy to was the fact that he was suffering from a mental health condition,
right.
But you could tell something is happening with him.
Right.
Now, if he was at home with his family, they would have noticed and probably picked up on those things just a little bit sooner than you and your roommates did.
Right.
But it's good that you were able to see those signs because that lets you know something is happening. Now, with family, most of the time what family would do is call the psychiatrist or call the therapist and inform them on what's going on. In some cases, depending on how severe or how erratic the person is acting, you might want to call the mobile crisis unit.
Oh, okay.
Mobile crisis unit is a psychiatrist, therapist, and a social worker. They will come out to the unit, to wherever it is that the person lives at or frequents a lot, and see and do an assessment on them right on the spot.
Now is that a 311 call, or how do you activate the mobile unit?
You can call 311 and tell them what borough that you're in, and then they would give you the number to the actual mobile crisis unit.
Okay.
What happens is that several city hospitals have them that work specifically in the hospital. Once you call 311, they will give you the number. You will call and explain to them exactly what you are seeing and what is going on. In some cases, they come out immediately, depending on how severe the case is. In other cases, they might take a day or two before coming out. If they come out and they can't locate the person and actually interact with them, then they would try to find out, okay, do they go to a program? Do they go to school, work? Do they live here regularly? Is there a certain time the person comes back? Because they want to engage the person to determine whether this person needs to be hospitalized. Because in some cases, you have to call EMS and have them hospitalized where they can meet with the emergency room psychiatrist, and then a determination can be made at that time on whether, if the person went off the meds, like it seems like your college roommate may have did, they may have to hospitalize him to get him stable again.
Okay.
Back on the medications, back on the regimen, inform the psychiatrist, inform his therapist on what's going on so that they can work collectively to stabilize the person again before releasing them back into the community.
That sounds really like a good, suggestion and a very good statement to be asked and answered correctly. But there's something that troubles me is the police department. Mm. A lot of times family members call the police department because a family member, friend, or whatever is acting erratic, right? And when the police come, the first thing that happens is they handcuff the person.
Which is probably the worst thing to do.
Well, in certain situations, yes. Now, if the person is homicidal or suicidal, you want to try to, at best, restrain them so that they don't hurt themselves or anybody in the community. Mm-hmm. And God forbid they have a family member like trapped in the house and, in the apartment.
Stuff like
and
that,
they can't,
yes.
Yeah, situations like that. Now, most, I'm not going to say all, most police officers aren't trained to handle situations like that. So sometimes they react differently. And some are trained. Some have many years of experience. They've done extensive training. So they are well aware of how to handle situations like that. And yes, I've read in the newspaper, I've seen on the news where, unfortunately, police have shot,
Yes.
killed,
Well, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
things of that nature. And yes, those are tragic situations because the person was actually just crying out for help. And didn't know exactly which way to turn. But you have to remember, too, the police is also making an attempt to protect themselves and the community. I'm not saying right or wrong. I'm just saying that this is what I have seen, I've encountered, and even speaking with police officers about the matter, these are the reasons that they have given why things have happened.
Yes.
You know?
And I know Paul as being a case manager, because I've worked as a case manager, too, wherein you have to go into people's homes.
Yes.
And sometimes you see things that alert you, and you have to call the police right away.
Yes.
You know, because sometimes you see abuse, you know.
Yes.
You know, and having that type of job puts you right in the line of fire. You know, when you when you are faced with these situations, what should I do? You may know the client for a long time, and now you see a situation and you say, well, you know, this has to be corrected. You know, I can't allow this to go any further. But you don't want to call the police. Now, you was mentioning about that unit,
Mobile crisis
the
unit.
mobile crisis unit. Can you call the mobile crisis unit and they would just come, as opposed to you having to call 911?
Yes and no. I've experienced it on both levels. We're calling them and they say, okay, we'll be there as soon as possible. And soon as possible, because they're dealing with a lot, is not like right now, and the person is acting erratic right now, and they need attention right now.
Yeah.
There's been times where I have called 911, and I'm calling 911 for assistance from the EMS. It seems to be that they have it set up that when you call 911 for assistance for EMS, or when you say about an emotionally disturbed person, immediately dispatch the police as well.
Yeah.
The bells go off, yeah.
Immediately. And that is for the protection of the EMS workers because they do not want to get injured as well. So they need to see what type of situation we're going into, exactly what's going on and what's happening. So they call, the police is automatically dispatched. It's plenty times where the police have gotten there before EMS have gotten there.
Right.
There's times where EMS have gotten there to the scene and refused to get out their truck until the police arrive.
Oh, okay.
Alright.
Okay.
So what I try to do in situations like that is have a conversation with them before they even enter the building to go to the person's unit.
Okay.
So you give them kind of like a heads up so that they know what they're walking into, have an
Exactly.
idea.
Exactly. I try to give them all of the pertinent information that is needed.
Yeah.
Well, the person is in the apartment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I want to take a commercial break right now, but I want to also ask you about the homelessness and the relationship to mental health when we come back. We're going to take a station break right now and pay some bills.
All right, how you guys doing?
Wait, how'd you get your video like that? Is that 4K or something?
Right, you got us over here looking like a hot mess.
No, it's actually a powerful live streaming app for Mac called eCam Live. You know what? Let me show it to you real quick. So you're able to use your mirrorless camera as a virtual webcam, and you can tweak the colors right in eCam Live using their camera effects, and then bring this video right into Zoom, Google Meet, and pretty much any other virtual meeting app. You can even stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn and bring in comments right onto the video. And you can customize the look, size, and position of the comments right in the app. Or you can even add your logo to the corner of your video, or yourself, or both. There are plenty of picture-in-picture styles to choose from if you're sharing your screen for a tutorial or doing a presentation. And it doesn't have to be live. You can use it to record a course and eliminate the need to have to edit it later, all in 4K quality. And if you got a green screen, you can set it up right in eCam Live, and you can bring that into your different meetings. If you're feeling fancy, you can move yourself into the corner of your frame to do a commentary or a reaction video. You can even add in video clips just by dragging and dropping it in. Pretty much everything's drag and drop. Y'all follow me? Okay, good. So if you want to step it up a notch, you can add some overlays to your video, whether it's a simple graphic or you want to have some titles or other info at the bottom of your screen. You can even add animated overlays like this one or this one. And with Ecamm Live's interview mode, you have full control over the look and feel of your broadcast. And you can add branded overlays to frame you and your guests and look like a real legit broadcast. And you can save each layout as a scene and switch between them with the press of a button. And you know, these days between virtual meetings, school, live streams, we on video all the time. So you just want to show up in a way where you can be confident and proud of. And for me, Ecamm Live is at the center of it all. Did y'all get all that?
You were on mute.
New York State's largest African American Chamber of Commerce, known as LIAACC, is now accepting new membership candidates. LIAACC has appeared on WABC, Here and Now, NBC's Positively Black, WLIW21, FIOS1, and in Long Island Business News. Membership consists of a variety of men and women of distinction who have been bestowed some of the most prestigious awards in the region. We host monthly membership meetings and signature events, including the Long Island African American Business Expo, Annual Health Fair, Ladies of LIAACC Annual Women's History Month program, and our annual Black History Month art exhibition. Join by simply logging on to our easy new membership sign-up portal at www.liaacc.org.
There is the therapeutic aspect of music, just expressing how you feel.
Kids use music as a way to provide language for their emotions.
Talking about my feelings with my mother, I'm gonna just be quiet. In the back of my head, I'm like, man, this ain't it.
I'm going to talk to Howie about his feelings, make it into a song.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around. And I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanted to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Hi, my name is Maya Delgado, and I am the brand ambassador of Kids Breakdown. And this is my demo video. Enjoy!
Download app on Google Play or App Store.
Create account. Choose avatar.
Enter Kids Breakdown Roadmap.
Roadmap consists of math, spelling, memorization, and matching mini games.
After each minigame, personality and interest questions will appear to pinpoint which job may suit you best. After completion of all 8 minigames, you will be presented with jobs you may want to learn more about.
Read fun facts about all the different types of jobs within the law, science, and arts career.
Use your gold bricks to make your job environment fully complete.
Go back and play minigames to earn more bricks if needed. I hope you enjoyed the Kids Breakdown demo video. Make sure to download today and share with your friends. This platform will pave the way for kids who are just like me, the groundbreakers of tomorrow.
Yeah, we're back with Paul Barclay, our expert on mental illness. We have so much questions to ask you. Glenn, you left off.
Yeah, I wanted to find out. I know that one of the issues that we have with the people who are on the street, homeless, a lot of times points back to some branch of mental health or not wanting to be on meds or various other reasons. What help us out with that? What can you say about it, and you know, how can we support them in being mentally well?
Wow, that's a great question. I remember the early part of 2000, I was working street homeless for an agency. I can't mention their name because I hadn't had clearance to,
I understand.
Not-for-profit organization.
Sure.
But I was doing street homeless, and that situation is very different.
Yeah.
It's very different dealing with a person who hasn't had psychotropic medications in years.
Okay.
It's very different dealing with a person who is living on the street through all elements, all seasons, like totally different, how can you say, totally different animal to deal with. And
Sure.
I'm not saying that in a negative form.
Right.
Engaging people who have not or isn't taking their medications and decided that they wanted to live outside, let's say, of a shelter.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people are homeless and a lot of people have the option to go to the shelter, but they refuse. The reason why, and at least in my experience in talking to people and doing biopsychosocials with people who were street homeless, majority of the time they didn't want to go to the shelter due to the fact that they felt the shelter was worse than living on the street.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that as well.
I've heard that.
Yeah.
How is that possible?
Well, during my career, I've worked in the shelter system as well. Again, I can't say the name of it, but what I can say is that it was on Ward's Island. I'll put it like that.
Okay.
It was on Ward's Island. And, you know, there's so many different ones on Ward's Island. And in some cases, the shelter system can be like almost prison. In other words, when I say almost like prison, yeah, you got your freedom to go and come, more or less, but the safety there, they have security there. They do searches. They do, when you come in, you know, you have to put all your stuff on a conveyor belt. They have to warn you with so all of that goes on. But just like in prison, people are still able to bring in weapons.
True.
And then you have a lot of people who are homeless in the shelters, but aren't suffering from a mental health condition.
Right.
So now we know as a fact that a lot of people who do have a mental health condition are usually preyed upon.
Right. Yes.
A lot of people will say, oh, you know, this person has schizophrenia, so I'm scared of them. 85% of people who have schizophrenia are non-violent.
Interesting.
Let me say that again. Non-violent. I didn't say each and every person.
Right. 85%.
Non-violent.
Wow.
And they do have people who would take advantage of them.
Okay.
I've seen cases where people who have a mental health condition live at home with their family, and they are receiving SSI or SSD. And whoever the family member is that they're living with takes the whole check. So when you see this person on the street, you would think that they were homeless, but they actually have a place to go to, but they are not giving any of their funds because they're being financially abused.
Okay.
So in the shelter, I've seen that happen a lot as well. Fights break out, they steal things from them, they abuse them, they use them, or do this, or go do this, or take care of this, or do, and this is not their capacity, this is not why they're there. So they are taken advantage of in several different ways due to the fact that they have a mental health condition and it's obvious to a person who doesn't have one.
Okay.
So instead of me living in the shelter where I am going to be taken advantage of, where I am going to be treated differently, where people are going to do things to harm me, I'd rather take my chances on the street.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rooftops, abandoned buildings, hallways, park benches, and as we have seen, even from the news, there's homeless people who have been sleeping in the park, minding their business, not interfering with anybody. And kids light the blanket on fire,
Yes,
throw
they do.
bottles and cans and assault them and things of that nature. So shelter or street is very dangerous. But majority of the time, what I've heard is that they do not want to go into the shelter system because they deem that worse than being on the street.
Now
Go ahead.
you know, there's another thing that comes to mind, and that is that I've heard of people actually coming from other states to come to New York because New York has more services than their state provides. And a lot of times, some of the folks on the street, I run the Business Improvement District here on Suffolk Boulevard, and a lot of these folks aren't even from in-state, but they hang out here because it's a transit hub, and there's access to drugs and other kinds of things as well.
You are absolutely correct. Absolutely correct. I would say within the last 10 years, I've seen more people from other states than people that actually live right here in New York come for services, whether it's for mental health, whether it's for substance abuse, whether it's for public assistance, housing.
Yes.
Yeah, people leave from other states and come here because New York seems to be the place to come to when you need those type of services. I have a plethora of clients from New Jersey right now in the program for substance abuse.
Yeah.
And when you do your interview, the intake interview with them, they will tell you, we don't have these type of methadone programs there. They are few and far. You have to travel a great distance to get there. We don't have outpatient programs. Like we don't have rehab, residential programs. And at the end of all that, they help you with housing. We don't have that.
Okay.
Just right across the water in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to talk about the people from Ohio, from Mississippi, from Atlanta, from Chicago, just right across the water. They don't have these things.
Yeah.
Right there in New Jersey, that's what I hear.
That's I don't know what to say, but I do believe that story. And something that we are right now, we're in Jamaica, Queens, and this program is always talked about the community, and I have a lot of concerns about what's going on here right now because we're located, we're in the heart of Jamaica, and there's a lot of homelessness, there's a lot of mental illness right in front of the radio station. And I like to talk for real, and tell it like it is. And, I see people half naked in the streets just laying down. And being that I come from a mental health background and worked many years in the field, I understand that the shelter system is not perfect or even close to it, but I also, want to find out why a person would feel that, it's better to sleep on the street as opposed to, be in some type of shelter or some type of program, because it's very dangerous out here. And, I see people every single day in bad conditions. There's a gentleman that's on the corner, his feet, his legs is just...
It's gangrene. Basically, he's he had bedding in front of one of the bus shelters. Somebody actually gave him a wheelchair in the last 2 weeks, so he's actually been moving around rather than just laying on the sidewalk. And the police. I've contacted the police. I've contacted the one of the organizations that deals with the homeless, and tries to get them off the street and get services and so on and so forth. And he refuses services because he knows that they're probably going to have to cut off his legs. At some point, and so he's resisting, and it seems like there's no middle ground for him. There's no opportunity for him. Now I know that I looked it up, looked into it. There's a law on the books that says that if a mental health professional determines that this person needs medical help, regardless of what they're saying themselves, they can do that. But I guess the city doesn't really want to enforce that. I probably because they were afraid of getting sued. But it's just you feel for them. You want to be able to provide them something rather than just give them money to stay where they are.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people are doing.
Well, the money is only going to be a temporary fix, and it's not even temporary. That's only for the here and now, right now.
Yeah.
Because how long is that money going to actually last?
No.
It's not going to last any long period of time. I don't know. I know that there is a thing called a 2PC. A 2PC is when two professionals, mental health professionals, determine that this person is in need of psychiatric assistance.
Oh, psychiatric. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
psychiatric
different
assistance.
than medical. Right.
Right,
Okay.
different than medical.
Yeah.
Psychiatric assistance. And that is a way that they can be admitted into the psych ward.
Okay.
Now, also do understand that after 72-hour hold,
They can sign themselves out.
They can sign themselves out, or if the hospital determines that no, this person is not psychiatrically stable enough to return to the community, then they have to go to court.
Or they have to go to court?
Have to go to court, and a judge has to make the decision on whether this person is stable enough or
Wow.
they should stay longer in the hospital, in the psych ward, until they are stable enough to be released into the community.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
see, these are the questions and answers that we would like to provide the community that listen to our World Hour Power Show, and that's why it's called, this part is called Let's Talk About It. I see that Michelle is
Michelle
here.
Hope.
Hope is here in the
Our
house.
sexologist.
Hi, Michelle. I was wondering where you were.
Hi. Sorry, I got a little caught up, but I am so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yes,
You're welcome.
Michelle. I see that you're a sexologist. Please tell the audience exactly
Yes.
what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I study human sexual behavior. And oftentimes when I do that, people think that I just talk about or look at the act of sex, but I don't. I actually look at the intersectionalities of sexuality and race and how that plays a key role in everyone's everyday life. You know, my saying is from the womb to the tomb. Sexuality is a part of your everyday life. And so, especially after 2020, and the racial uprising of 2020, we are now more open to start looking at intersectionalities and how oppression is experienced through those varying identities. And that is something that I look at very intentionally. I started thinking I wanted to be Dr. Ruth because there wasn't a person of color out there, or there wasn't someone that I could come to mind quickly on that front. And growing up, I saw Dr. Ruth and Dr. Drew, and I was like, why are they talking about sexuality when they can't understand the race component and the cultural components of what is a part of sexuality?
Okay, that's a very interesting subject. I also want to, talk about young people, young women. With sexuality, like it usually starts in junior high school, and we're talking today about, different addictions, different mental health problems. And one of the problems that does exist and come up with young people is the sexuality piece, the identity, their identity, how they relate to sex, and how sex can be part of abuse.
Yeah. I think one thing that we have to remember, right, is that as adults, as caretakers, as stakeholders in young people's lives, parents, grandparents, we often try to shield them from conversations or discussions around sexuality until it's too late. We don't have quality sex education in schools that's comprehensive, age appropriate, and medically accurate, that's taught on a consistent basis. And I believe that that is a part of a lot of the social issues that we see, especially in Black and Brown communities, from toxic masculinity to unintended pregnancy. If we had a education system that included holistic sexuality as an important subject, I think we could course correct for future generations. But until we become more comfortable recognizing that sexuality isn't just about the act of sex, you mentioned gender. It's not just about gender norms. It's about our whole entire lives, and it's about who we are as people. So I always encourage parents and stakeholders in young people's lives, start teaching and having conversations about sexuality young, and have them often, and normalize it.
Okay.
So it doesn't seem so so it doesn't seem so, what's the word I'm looking for? Taboo. We have to remove the taboo from these conversations. I think gender identity is a fluid thing, especially because we're living in a space and time where everybody has access to the internet, and you can absorb a lot of information. And unfortunately, our society cannot move as quick as the internet. So to create societal norms and acceptances will take much longer. And I think that's an issue that we have to start addressing and facing. And then porn addiction. I think the average age, I believe I recently read, the average age of exposure to pornography is 9.
9?
9? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, everybody's handing their young person a cell phone, and
That's
the
true.
World Wide Web. You know, you could go on Google and just put in a certain phrase or a certain things that an algorithm cannot understand nuance to, and all of a sudden you have a full page of pornography, but it wasn't intentional. And without context, young people, that's the way adults are having sex. And we all know it's not, right? So I wish, sometimes I wish, okay? Let's be real, so I think that we have to provide context for young people and help them understand that those images are not real. It's like a horror film. When somebody gets their arm cut off in a horror film and blood goes spraying everywhere, you know that is a prop.
Right.
It's the same way in adult performers and pornography. Those people have agreed to those terms. Nothing is spontaneous in those clips. In those videos, they look like they lasted 10, 15 minutes. They shot that across 8 to 10 hours of a shoot, taking breaks. Penises don't look like that, but vulvas don't look like that. You know, a large majority of adult female performers have had augmentation. But if they get labiaplasty. In fact, in Europe, the NHS had to create materials. The National Health System had to create document materials helping young girls know that vulvas are shaped in all different shapes and all different colors and all different. Your left labia might be longer than your right labia, and that's all very normal because young people had consumed so much pornography. They thought that everything was supposed to be symmetrical. So in Europe, they were seeing a high number of minors coming in for vagoplasty. So that's where you get the labia cut perfectly.
Wow.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this is all being exposed to people on the web.
Really easy to find it. Super easy.
So how as a parent or guardian, how do we how do we educate them correctly? You know, what's the process?
So I think first we have to educate ourselves. And I think this is where it gets tricky, right? Let's spill the tea. A lot of us have experienced sexual trauma in our past.
Okay.
Oftentimes and I'm going to speak very specifically to the communities I work in, which is Black and brown communities.
Okay.
Please do.
We sweep that under the rug.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't actually want to talk about it. We are like, somebody said that happened, but I don't really believe that to be true. Or we don't recognize it, and we certify it as especially for our young men of color, as a rite of passage, right?
Okay.
Now you are a man. We've seen this with like Lil Wayne discussed how Baby got him a sex worker at 12. That is coerced sexual assault, right? Or coercive behavior. But in that child's mind, because the 12-year-old is a child,
Right, right.
they don't know that. So it's up to us as adults to reflect on our own sexual history and get comfortable with that, which may take therapy. And then we identify through literature, right? There are a lot of websites. Amaze.org is for really good for talking about puberty, feelings of like, that's very age appropriate for like middle school and under. Robbie Harris has a great series of children's books that are anatomically correct, that are age appropriate, and we have to do that work. We have to go out and do that work, and then just normalizing the conversation, right? I don't think, remember when it was a hoo-ha and a a lollipop,
Yeah.
a cupcake or a cookie.
We couldn't even call it what it was. Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts, right? When we're ashamed to use appropriate language for our own anatomy, how do we then know we can come to our parents and talk about these feelings of lust that we might be having during puberty, which are totally normal? And so we do a lot of this. And I do think that for Black and Brown communities, historically being hypersexualized through the gaze of white supremacy does not aid us in feeling confident to talk about these things. We turn to the church and we tell young women, we don't want you to be a fast girl. Well, what does that even mean? Or is that just, again, the residue of internalized racism blaming young girls and their Black bodies because they're more voluptuous, right?
Yeah.
So we have to look at that, because even in schools in America, African American girls are 2.5 times more likely to get in trouble for dress code violations when wearing the exact same type of clothes their white counterparts are wearing.
Wow.
And that is an example of the hypersexualization of Black girls and Black women's bodies that has plagued our history since slavery. And we have to address, we as our own community have to take note to that and recognize what that did to us. What is the transgenerational trauma that we are continuing to pass down through gender norms, homophobia, toxic masculinity, or silence? And before we can get to building better for tomorrow, we have to heal ourselves a little bit.
Okay, Michelle, I agree with you 100%. Something I would like to ask you, being that you are a young woman, you're a minority, what is your thought on the videos that has been out for the past 20 years with women betrayed as whores and I don't want to use the other word, but just, on a very unfavorable way, and the clothing that we use on videos, and the behavior that you will see on the videos. What message are we as minorities sending out to our young Black females?
Well, again, I want to kind of key in on, you continue to bring up young Black women, and that's almost as if you are not placing any responsibility on our young Black men.
Okay.
So I really want to focus that we cannot continue to shame Black women for their sexuality, because I think that what we see in videos is a combination of internalized racism and white dominant culture structures continuing to paint the narrative that Black women are whores without recognizing and celebrating a Black woman's sexuality, because that is a part of being human. Celebrating that sexuality, celebrating your body, right? We have been shamed historically for that. I think we've seen more women recently try to reclaim that power by choosing to be more provocative and saying, this is who I am, and I'm not going to shame them for that. But I think these videos, it's a repression of the sexuality we want to express, but we are doing it in a way that continues to proliferate the white racist trope of the Black whore and the Black male rapist. Because if we can identify a Black man as a rapist, then his counterpart must be a whore that can never be raped or abused or hurt. And so that is a historic narrative from slave days that continues to be perpetuated, because I think it's hard for us to look and say, well, this is a part, sexuality is a part of who I am, and I should have the freedom to express that. But how do we express it? Because we've never known how to express it. So I think it's an exploration.
You've mentioned it, and I've experienced it in some other areas. This trauma, this intergenerational trauma that goes from generation to generation. How do we get? You talked about educating ourselves.
Yeah.
And you gave us some websites for younger folks. What about us older folks? The middle-aged and older folks. How do we sensitize this traumatized impact in today's society?
Yeah, I am a firm believer in mental health. So get a therapist. Find a support group. For example, I am what society would call me a survivor of sexual assault. I identify as a thriver because survivor seems so weak to me. That's my lexicon. So I choose to identify as a thriver. Places like here in New York, Mount Sinai, Savvy, which is the Sexual Assault and Violence Intervention Program, they offer free counseling, and it doesn't matter when you experienced assault or violence. So seek out help from professionals, but make sure it's the right professional. And I also think that journaling is a really great way to start processing the trauma, because at first you have to accept the trauma was real. Right. And then you have to make the resolve with yourself. Now, some people will be like, I want to go back and tell my uncle or my auntie or this, that. We really got to be okay with not getting the outcome that we want, because that's just going to haunt us. We have to, whatever works for you to self-soothe other than drugs and alcohol, because we don't want to shift the coping mechanism.
Right.
But find healthy ways to cope. And I think therapy can do that. I think journaling can do that. And now there are so many incredible apps out there where if you don't have health insurance, you can get low cost therapy online. And just take advantage of that.
Yeah. So I guess the message you're saying is heal yourself first, and then deal with whatever else is around you.
Yeah. Yep. And sometimes if you're a parent, you have to do it at the same time, right? And you have to lean into the opportunity or the idea that maybe you will find some solace and some healing through doing the kind of work to help your child, the young person in your life, not succumb to the same type of traumas. We can do our best to protect them through empowering them with information. But I do think, again, in my personal opinion, I have seen oftentimes our communities have looked at situations and said things like, well, I got over it. They'll be fine. We don't.
Yes, I hear that statement quite often. Yes, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
So I think that's the thing, is just talking,
Okay. We talked about it earlier. Talk therapy, huh?
We have another expert here, Paul Barclay, and I know we both, as therapists, have seen, all different types of situations. What's your feedback on what Michelle just said?
Everything she said is right on point.
Yes.
Right on point.
Yeah.
Right, exactly on point. There's nothing for me to add.
There is one thing I want to add. I just taught a class to some PhD level psychology students. And oftentimes, so I'd say this to everybody, write your own sexual chronology, write your sexual history for yourself. It's a great exercise to do. So these PhD students, none of whom are going to specialize in sexuality, right? But I said to them, have you ever asked a client who might be in your office for anxiety and depression to give you their sexual history. And they kind of looked at me crazy, like, that's not what they came in for. And I said, I get that. However, so many people have experienced trauma around sexuality issues. And that doesn't mean they physically were touched. They could have developed faster than everybody else in school and got made fun of, or they developed earlier than everyone else in school, or when they lost their virginity, they started their period, or something traumatic, right?
Yes.
And I said, start to give them that, or ask them if they would be comfortable doing it, because I have a feeling it will help give you a bigger picture to the depression and anxiety that they are feeling. And they thought about it. They were like, oh, I never thought to do that, which most therapists and counselors do not feel comfortable and would not say that that is their specialty. So I do want to tell people to seek out, especially if you have a trauma, somebody that has experience working in the realm of sexuality. It doesn't have to be specifically your issue. But I think I like to be transparent. So I go to a therapist, and she has history working with sex offenders.
Okay.
And I worked in Rikers, right?
Okay.
So I was attracted to that person because I experienced trauma in Rikers, because just going in Rikers and working in a Rikers is traumatic.
Yeah, I know. I've been there.
So I gravitated towards her because she would understand the conversations I've had to hear before that
Right.
still haunt me. Not because I think I'm a pedophile or any of that nature, but because she has a sense of knowing what I've heard.
Right.
And so that makes me feel safer to be able to talk about maybe my personal love life or other things, because I feel like they'll understand me. So it is important. I say all that to say it's important to find a therapist that you feel comfortable with. Take them for a test drive. Okay. Like you would take a car for a test drive. This is your brain.
Yeah.
Michelle,
Yes.
it's been a pleasure having you on
you.
Our World, Our Power. And once a month, we're going to be doing this mental health piece. I want you to come on again and
Thank
to
you.
finish this wonderful conversation. Now, how can people get in contact with you?
So it's Michelle Hope. You can just, it's me, or it's at MH for Michelle Hope, and then Sexpert, like sex and Sexpert, MH Sexpert, everywhere. Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok.
All right,
Okay,
that's good.
great.
All right, I'm so happy that you was able to come on, and next time I would like to do more time with you because you're a very interesting woman, and I want to continue this conversation. Paul Barclay, it was a wonderful time being with you.
My pleasure.
And we're going to do this once a month, okay? If we can do this once a month, can we do this once a month?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You got
all
me.
right. Okay, so
Definitely.
let's talk about this once a month, okay?
Now, Paul, how can people get a hold of you, Paul?
I'm on Instagram as SA Counselor. So you can always contact me that way. I have a few other outlets, but I would prefer that one for now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. You've been listening to Our World, Our Power Network.com. And please don't forget to follow us on WGJSradio.com, our Facebook.com, Our World Media #1. You've been listening to Lady Pauline and my co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenidge, the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard. Catch you all next week. Have a blessed weekend. Take care.